Hello everybody again. Welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We are in field 32, busily making bales. And I got something I want to try, and this is going to be difficult because this is a baler that requires all my attention. And yet I have something here that I wanted to read. Oh, you know what? That's going to drive me nuts. Hold on, let me get rid of that. We'll get out of that so that every time we press O, it doesn't put us in no, or clear the screen. You know how, I don't know if anybody's ever done this in their life. I'm not sure I ever had a teacher uh, do this with me. It's kind of like a type of time capsule where they tell you, okay, you're in whatever grade you're in now. Write yourself a letter that you won't open and read until you're, I don't know, like you graduate from high school or at some point in the future, where you can kind of look and see what you told yourself looking forward, and then you can kind of look at your life and see how things turned out and kind of look backwards and see where your head was, when you were a younger age and that kind of thing. I did this a number of years ago. I think I mentioned in one of the videos here that I'm a Sunday school teacher. I've been in a couple times at our church, and a number of years ago, I taught some kids in the sixth grade, and I had them do this. And I told them, I said, when you graduate from high school, I'll hand these to you when we have a graduation potluck at our church. So I actually just did this this past spring, when we did that with this group of kids. And this was long after, I was no longer in that class teaching at that time. And so I was able to hand these off. And I can't remember the instruction I gave to them at the time when they were writing it. But I think what I told them is talk to yourself and tell yourself something that you think is really, really important that that your future self really needs to know. What's important to you right now that you want to make sure your future self considers, takes into account, or whatever. So gave them all a pen and paper, and they did it, and I never read them, by the way. I promised them I wouldn't read them, so they also put it in envelopes, and most of them sealed them off, and I just kind of threw them in my desk and didn't look at them or pull them out rather until I think it was 6 years that I held on to those. So I was kind of their time capsule, for a little bit. But I'd be curious, once again, not to beg for comments, so you don't have to comment or do nothing if you don't want to. But have you ever done something like that, or like either in school or in some other place? One of my sons did this. It was, I think it was in eighth grade, and he just read this letter that he wrote to himself here the other day, and I gotta say, kind of as an aside, I'm kind of doing that right now as we go. Not in these videos, of course, but I have a document somewhere on my computer, and I just saw it again here the other day as I was sniffing around on some things on the computer, and the document is titled "To Read When You Are Older." What this is a document I started making some notes in, as I was, I got married when I was 21, so I was, I guess, fairly young when I got married, maybe not as young as some, and, started living life with my new wife and interacting with people, whether it was family or people on the job, fellow people at church, whatever it is, just life, the people and stuff we run into. And there would occasionally be situations that I encountered that it's like, why did this person do uh, whatever they just did? It might be a family situation, and and I think typically it was someone who seems like they would be old enough to know better. So what I started doing was writing stuff in This document, mainly a bunch of lists of things not to do. Don't do this to your kids. Because, maybe I observed someone else who had done something to their kids, and I'm not going to say it was something evil, nothing like that. Obviously, those are things we wouldn't want to do, and I wouldn't need to write that down. But, these are just maybe things of life that, you wouldn't have to do because it causes hardship on somebody when you do it, or just unnecessarily ticks them off. So, and these are things that I figure if I wrote to myself, maybe someday, assuming I can remember where that document is located on my computer and I have the presence of mind to go look at it, maybe I could forestall certain poor behavior, if you will, by looking at my own words saying, hey, doofus, don't do this, do try to do that, whatever those were. And honestly, it's been quite a while since I put something in there, so I need to go back and look at it to refresh myself. But I guess that's a type of letter to myself for the future, right? So, so anyway, what I wanted to try to do in here, and maybe I need to wait before I quit turning all these sharp corners here because it's going to be difficult. I don't know how I can fail at the same time I try to read this. My son brought this out to me. Like I say, it was something he wrote in the 8th grade in school, and I don't know if he kept it or if the teacher kept it and then just handed it to him, when he graduated from high school. That's a pretty dedicated teacher, if that's what they did, seeing how the middle school and the high school are two different places, the same district but different locations. That'd be a lot of work for the teacher to catalog and kind of keep all these for students. So I may have to ask my son, if he just had it and threw it in a drawer for later. That I don't know. But maybe when I get down here, I'll try to read this to you. And I asked for permission from him. I'm not going to say his name in here. Anybody that hears this who knows who I am or our family or whatever, they're going to know who wrote this. But I gotta say, and maybe it's natural of a parent to brag on their kid, I don't mean it to sound that way. What I will say is, I don't think I would have written a letter like this when I was his age. There's just some things he mentioned in here, some perspective that he has that that I don't think I had when when I was his age in 8th grade. I think I was much more into goofing off and getting more into troublesome areas with, wanting additional freedom to do this and the other thing than I would have been thinking soberly about, some other realities of life, shall we say. So the trouble is how in the world, maybe this is why all the politicians, when they give a speech, they have a teleprompter so they can look out at their audience and see all the words they're supposed to say on a screen or something when they look at it. Okay, I got a straight stretch here. So he starts off, and this is June 6th of 2018. And I am here today, dear so-and-so, this is what's his name. I am here today, an 8th grader, sitting by the window in Mrs. Bishop's classroom, writing to you. Oh boy, this is going to take a while to get through this. I got to pay attention to this paper. I am surrounded by my best friends as we ponder you, and I have some questions and thoughts to share with you. To start off, how has work in the bees for Andy been going? Ooh, get on the windrow. My goodness. You should have gone through some long, hard, hot summers, and I hope you've been saving for college and are planning the future carefully. I have hopes that you have your career decided and that you are becoming an independent, strong young man. I hope college is in your near future, and that you have plenty of money to go there. Let me get this bail out. You cannot imagine how challenging it is to read and bail a windrow at the same time. It'd be crazy. Did I miss a sentence? Plenty of money to go there. I hope you've applied for many scholarships and that you are graduating as valedictorian. This will be a huge help to you in your schooling and getting the desired career. Make sure you are working to overcome your weaknesses, fears, obstacles, and that you have a vision. As you are ready to go out into the world, make sure you remember, then he mentions a person's name, lesson on having your walls built tall and strong. Be prepared to say no to things that will get you in trouble. This is important to you. Let me send off another bail. Think about the ultimate and underlying reason that these goals matter to you. Why do you want a good job? A nice house? You need to always remember. Oh, I'm getting a bail. You need to always remember that these things are not the most important things in life. Make sure you have your perspective right and you are pushing for what really matters and what you will wish you did when you die. This life is short and it's the only one that you get. There will be times that things may not go as you were expecting and you will mess up. Don't get discouraged. Trust in the Lord and stay close to Him, and He will direct where you need to go and what you need to do. Let's off the bail. Then you won't have to worry about where you should go and what you should do. Never ever forget what you have been taught by your mom and dad about what really matters in this life. Get down this window. Oh, so far so good. I'm not doing too bad. I think you will be surprised when you read this letter at who you are and who you have become. Take a moment and reflect on your life from your earliest memory up until now. How does this make you feel? Is this how you expected it? I'm sure and have no doubts that it isn't exactly how you envisioned yourself, and that's okay. Right off the bail. You are where you are for a reason. Remember, you have a purpose unique to you, and that is why you are on this planet. Don't forget that, and make sure you are humble. Examine your life. Are you in the spot that you want to be today? And then, for whatever reason, he didn't even sign this, but that's the end of the letter from his 8th grade self to his senior in high school self. I don't know how that hit you. I'd be interested to know if, some of your kids have written something like that, if they'd be willing to share it. I'm always curious to see letters kind of like that, to see where your perspective was at a certain point in time. Because we all know, I think our perspective changes with time, and I think that's a healthy thing. It's a good thing. But this here, I and I told him straight up, I don't think I had that perspective when I was in the 8th grade. I was at that point finally trying hard in school and wanting to excel at that, but I don't think there's any way I could have written a letter quite like this. So, some of what he said was important to him at the time did come true. I mean, he did very well in school. He was a valedictorian, so hopefully he's pleased, with the effort that he put into that, and he has kept with his bees. So some of the other questions, I mean, he's going to be asking himself those the rest of his life. I mean, maybe not everybody on the planet is completely introspective, but I know we all have a conscience, and so we ask ourselves questions or whatever as we go about our days. We do things, and we have to answer to the conscience, which tells us what's right from wrong and all that stuff. But how about you? Have you ever written a letter like this? And if so, I'd be curious to know some of the things you put into it. I kind of mentioned the changing of perspective. Why is it that the human being, whatever spot they're in, whatever they're thinking at the moment, we have this tendency to think that this is how I've always felt about something, this is how I've always thought, and who are you to tell me that I used to be different? And yet we are. We change over time. It's sometimes, I think where you can see this a lot, for example, especially in a large family. If you have several children, a lot of times the older children will point their finger at the parents and say, well, how come I didn't get to do that? They'll look at something their sibling is doing. Well, you never let me do that back then, and you told me it was harmful or wasn't something I should do for this reason or other. And well, changes happen, and your parents change perspective, and it isn't until you become a parent that maybe you understand kind of what they're going through. I think one of my kids has a sign, and what does it say? It's something about a kid doesn't realize it when they are growing up. They're watching their parents grow up right alongside them. And it's so true. When you get married, you have no idea what's coming. When it comes to raising a family or children, or, what it's like interacting with another person in the house that you now are accountable to. And so yeah, so there's a lot of changes that happen, and it's a rare person who ever, I won't say ever, but especially if it's on a contentious issue, and you can just think of what a contentious issue might be. On something contentious, whether it's political or something that people have strong feelings about, it's the rare person who will admit publicly that they used to think differently about this. They used to think about it this way, now they think differently, and give their reasons because or whatever. At least that's been my observation. Those kinds of people, especially when it comes to moral things and whatnot, that takes a lot of integrity and takes a strong person to be willing to admit that. Most of us, I think, we would tend to bluster through it and just say, well, this is how I've always felt about it, and the evidence to the contrary. I can't remember if I've commented on that in this video. I know we've seen it sometimes in business. We'll have a client leave our firm. We're an accounting firm, and we're not the best firm in the world. We know that. We don't say that. So, our approach may not work for someone else, or they may get along with another service provider, and most of it, if it comes to tax law or general business principles, it shouldn't matter which particular accountant they go to see. A lot of what we would share is similar, but yet there are differences. And there are some things I know we offer our clients. I think I started a window over here. That depending on the circumstance and depending on our expertise, that can be quite a bit different from what they would get elsewhere. And occasionally, But in order to provide those services, a lot of times, it takes a lot of extra work. So we have to, if we're going to provide that kind of service, we have to get paid for it. Otherwise, we're not able to do it. Oh, look at that. There's a car going under the map. Oops. I guess we're at the edge of the map, and that's all right. So a lot of times, we'll provide these services for a customer because that's who we do. Well, that's just who we are and what we do. And sometimes, if they get tired of paying what's probably going to be a higher fee in order to give them some extra service in certain areas, maybe they figure they can get a better deal somewhere else, and a lot of times they can, but they aren't going to necessarily get the same level of service. And we'll hear back later certain clients that went elsewhere and all of a sudden realize that a lot of times you get what you pay for, and they maybe found a disaster somewhere else, and wasn't quite the fix to their situation that maybe they hoped it would be. But what we've observed is it is extremely rare for one of those clients, upon realizing that maybe they had something good, when they were with our firm or whatever, it's the rare uh, client that will come back and will admit it. It's, you can count them on one hand, and usually the people that do that are extremely quality people. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Anybody that's willing to own, whether it's a mistake or to say, I made this decision and I was wrong. Those kind of people are extremely rare. And so there have been a few that have eventually have come back to our firm, and we of course we welcome with open arms. We're not going to make anybody feel bad. I mean, shoot, if someone wants to go somewhere else, that's their prerogative. We're not sitting there saying, well, we told you so, or crying over spilled milk. That isn't it at all. Um, I'm just observing that's an interesting dynamic in the human. And even as I say this, I look at my own self. I don't know how good I am at admitting those things or recognizing where I may have changed an opinion kind of over time on something. And kudos to the person who when they have a strong opinion, if they have hurt someone with it in the past, if they think to go back to that person, you know, if they change their mind and say, I recognize I came down really hard on you on this issue a number of years ago. I now see where you were coming from, and I was wrong. I changed my perspective. You just don't see that happen very often. That requires a level of humility that most of us, just don't have. But it's pretty cool when you do see it, and it's a pretty high quality individual who's able to do that. We are just clicking along with these bales. I gotta say, this isn't taking as long as I kind of thought it would. Last time it seemed the whole baling process was quite a bit more arduous. So I'm kind of tickled, and we're just cranking them out. I seem to recall, although maybe this isn't true of the PC, maybe this was for console players, that there was kind of an upper limit on how many bale objects you could have. And I guess I don't have a bale counter mod in here. I'd probably have to go to the save game to figure out how many bales. I mean, you can see them. You can see all the dots that are in the field so far of how many we have. But, so, we'll call it 100. Does that sound about right? Yeah, I thought so. I don't know what price we're going to get. The last time I recall, I took a load of straw up there, hoping I'd make, just lots and lots of money to narrow the gap, and I look up there, it's staring me in the face, 41 grand in the hole. Huh. And I call myself an accountant. My goodness. But I have a feeling as we start loading up these bales and taking them off to the sell point, it'll close the gap some, but it isn't going to be near as much as, maybe we would hope for. But that's kind of part of the reason, and I need to do this sometime. I know there's other YouTube videos out there where they've looked at the crops of farming sim and they've tried to evaluate which one generates the most net income, based on cost of inputs and what you get out of it, which one is the best bang for your buck. And I guess I've kind of picked wheat because I can come in behind. You've got two revenue streams, both the straw and the wheat. But of course, a lot of that's going to depend on, how big of a yield you have, um, versus some other thing, versus what you're able to sell it for. Um, I almost think in Farm Sim 17, my boys and I looked at it, and I don't think it was a cereal grain at all that took top prize. I almost think it was a root. And maybe some of it is based on how much effort you got to go to with the roots to take them out, but I could be wrong on that. Probably what I need to do is look that up on YouTube. I'm sure there's been others out there that have studied it in detail, other better accountants than this one here, that got to the bottom of that. But I'm just trying to dig myself out of this hole. I don't want Gelvin Valley to be the place where I finally went bankrupt playing on hard and farming sim, and I'm not even playing as hard as it could be. There's also the soil mod, and I don't have that activated at the moment. But that probably would be a little bit more costly if I had it going. So I figured, I'd wait till I started making money before activating it. So who knows? Let me see. I've got to get my beacons on. The moment I figure each bale I crank out will be a few more dollars. I'm trying to remember, what was it, 115 bucks, maybe per bale. Wasn't much at all. So yeah, this isn't gonna close a huge gap at all when it comes right down to it, but that's all right. We'll get something. As I think now, I wonder to spare all of you from having to sit here and watch all this. I know sometimes I've seen YouTube videos, and I don't know if it's in the recording, I don't know if it's in the editing. So far, probably as everybody can tell, I've done no editing on any of these videos, and I have no doubt that it shows. There's coughs, there's sneezes, you probably hear me sniff from time to time. There's none of that that's been cut out. If I do have a cough coming, like right now I got a pretty bad cold, plus I have COVID, I do try to mute the mic, turn that off before I have my coughing fit. But I'm sure there's a lot of other corrupt sound that comes through and just dead areas that could be cut out. But so maybe it's in the editing software, and I downloaded some. I just need to figure out how to use it. It's kind of imposing. But maybe in there's a way to kind of do the time-lapse style, and maybe where in a 30-minute video you could see me do every field baling, instead of going windrow by windrow, bale by bale, listening to this boring fellow drone on about nothing. Nothing important anyhow. Here we go again, one more bale to crank it out. Oh, I'll be so glad we can get a square baler. I think it's over 120,000 if I recall, so that's a lot of clams I gotta come up with. And I have a feeling there's gonna be higher priority ways to spend that money before investing in a new baler. See if I can climb up the hill here and get that. Probably not something we would do in real life. You gonna grab it? There we go. It got it. So far, so good. I'm keeping from damaging my machinery, so that part's good. All this horsing around. So I think we'll get to the end of this winter and I'm looking at the clock here. Once again, a whole half hour's been blown. Shoot, I even read a letter on here this time. Managed to keep driving. But whole half hour's gone by, so I think as soon as I get to the end here, we'll put a fine point on this and call it good until the next time. So I get them turned around. I'm all ready to head off. Well, there we have it. Thank you so much for watching, listening in to some old guy just droning on about life and his kids and whatever else comes to mind. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to stop by, and I wish you the best in whatever you're doing. And have a nice night. We'll see you the next time. Bye-bye for now.